Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's so fun to see where you're all joining from. And I'm in Brooklyn, New York. My name is Samantha Dion Baker. And if you don't know my work, I am originally a designer. And now, after years of drawing in a journal, I have changed my career to being an artist and a teacher and an author. I am the author of Draw Your Day and Draw Your World, Draw Your Day for Kids, and I'm currently writing a fourth book that is coming out in 2025. I usually teach and talk about ideas and how you can find inspiration in the world around you and record in meaningful ways to capture memories. But these Michael's classes are really fun because I can hone in on something specific, like citrus fruits. I love citrus fruits, and I also am so comfortable drawing them that I'm really not using any reference today. I'm mostly using just memory. And I had a client for about 5 years, and it was a perfume company, and their sort of main ingredient for a lot of their fragrances were citrus fruits. And so I just drew hundreds and hundreds of oranges and lemons and grapefruits and all different unusual limes and all different kinds of citrus fruits. So I'm excited to share some techniques and sort of just get the basics down and then go from there. So please feel free to add questions in the chat, and we'll answer them as many of the questions as possible. So I guess now we'll move over to my desk view. All right, so I am using pretty much everything is Derwent today. The paper is Derwent as well. It is just like one of their Inktense watercolor pads. And the texture, there's a little bit of texture. It's a little bit more cold pressed than I usually use, but it takes the paints and the pencils so well that it makes sense to use it today. And I'm using Inktense pencils. I have 5 of them, and I'll share the colors that I'm using. I do find that it's really nice when you have a large set, if I have a large set of them, to just pull out a few, and so that, because the whole palette can be overwhelming, and I like to have a smaller range, so I'm not overwhelmed. So when I'm using them, I will tell you the colors. So not that it matters, you know, you can use other materials. You can you might have a smaller palette and just have like one ochre and one yellow, and you might have all these colors, but so don't worry if you don't have the exact colors that I'm using. Okay, so first I'm just going to do like a cross section of, let's do an orange. I have some oranges and some colors that work with creating an orange. And I did see one comment. I am using the Inktense paints. They're not in the frame right now, but there are just a few colored pencils as well. So we're using both. Mostly paints, actually. That's what I use pretty much all the time in my own work, and why I work with Derwent today. So most of what I will be doing today is sketching, drawing, painting, and then I'm going to be adding some details with pencils. Okay, so I'm going to start now. For a cross section, I'm going to draw a circle, but it's not going to be a perfect circle. It's going to be a little bit wonky. Like sort of imagine that your hand is shaking a little if it's as you're drawing a circle. So I kind of drew like a little bit of a wobbly line. Some oranges are more perfect circle. This one is a little bit wonky. And And right now I'm just using a graphite pencil to start. And then right smack in the middle, I'm just going to create this little like star with 8 or 9 points. And from each of those points, that's how I'm going to pull those out to make the segments. And what's really nice is these segments don't have to be perfect. That it's more real looking, the more imperfect they are. Some can be small. And so when I get an equal distance from the outside line, I'm just creating like a little bit, so they're all ending in the same place. I could do a circle, and then as a guide, you could draw a circle as a guide, just so you have something to follow. But basically, even if it's not exact, there's like a little tiny separation, a little like V shape at the corner where each segment sort of comes to this outside line. And when I draw it in ink, I always sketch in pencil. This is something that I could just go right to ink on, but I just want to show you how I normally sketch. So if there's something I don't like, I can correct it with ink. And then I'm going to add like a few random seeds, just kind of coming from the center. These can be anywhere. I'll just add 2 of them. And then what I'm going to do is, this is how I normally draw. So, and I add some ink and then I paint. So we're going to go through that process. For the next version, we're going to use a colored pencil to sketch so that it blends right into the paint. We're not going to have a hard outline. This is a nice way to show you sort of how to break up the segments and draw. So I'm using a line maker, a Derwent line maker. You can use any fine line permanent pen. If you're going to paint, just make sure that the pen that you're using has waterproof ink. I'm gonna draw this pretty quickly so we can start to color. And it's nice to just round the segments in the center so that you get that star shape for the little, I'm not sure what it's called, but the center point, little star. Just outlining my seeds. Now I'm going to outline the outside. And if I were just going to be doing an ink drawing, I would maybe even add another little tiny line here, and I can hint at it with my ink just to show there's usually the rind of the skin. You can see the color of the outside coming in to this white area. So I'm just going to hint at it. It's just like a little bit of a hint of the outside color of the rind. And then for the segments, for the little juice pods, I'm not sure if I'm calling them the right thing. Those are like little tiny like loopy lines. I'm just going to do them a little bit sporadically. I'm not doing it uniform. I'm kind of working the pen really lightly just to get a hint. It's almost like a very fluid, like very long squiggly line. And I'll just do that all around. Quiet when I'm just here by myself. If anyone, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
No questions right now, but good comments about how realistic it looks already.
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is like could be a step by step. I mean, it's really once you do it a lot, it just becomes, you know, something kind of relaxing to draw. So here we go. There's the ink drawing. I'm not even going to erase my pencil. Those who are here who know my work and how I work, a lot of times I like to leave certain elements of like the phases, the history of the process, and just leave it there, even if it is messy. So I'm taking my now flat Derwent water brush. I love this brush. It just helps me like really fill in space quickly. And so for the orange, I'm just using, there's one orange in the 24 palette. It's called Bright Orange. And I'm just going to have it kind of watered down. And I'm just going to fill in, make sure I fill in around the seed. The great thing that I'm always talking about when I use these Inktense paints is how you can layer them so that the paint will go down. If you have a lot of water, and it'll go down kind of similar to watercolor, and it dries very quickly, and then it dries flat, so you can't re-wet it. And I just really like that quality about it because I can just build and build and get really opaque if I want to. Or I can leave it as a more of a wash. Now I'm going to use the smaller brush. There's 3 smaller brushes. I'm actually going to be using the smallest one. There it is. So this one has a little tiny point. And I'm going to take the same color. I have not changed anything with the color. I'm using one color only. And now I'm going in and I'm adding some details. I'm pretty much painting over everything, but I'm leaving some space just to kind of give the idea that there's like, you know, shine. I'm trying to work pretty quickly so we can move on because I also want to do a wedge and then another cross section, but showing the rind. So a few more things I want to draw. And what's so nice about fresh root are these bright, beautiful colors, and the white of this, the inside of the skin, or this sort of inside of the rind. Again, I don't know the proper anatomy words for citrus fruit, but this part, it's so white. It's so nice that you don't have to paint anything at all in those spaces.
Ma'am, just a couple questions.
Yeah.
We have a request for you to show the palette that you're using
Oh, sure.
for the paint pan.
So mine is very messy. It's very loved. And I have about 3 of them going. I have one at home, one in my studio, and then one I keep in my bag. And so I'm using this color, which is mango. And then this is bright orange, but I'm just using mango. So in my mind, that's the orange. This one's sort of like a red orange, but that's all I'm using so far.
And then also,
I just wanted to quickly say I have a paper towel here, and that's how I clean my brush between colors. So that's what that is. It's a little messy looking, but yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. Someone asked if not erasing the pencil drawing make your watercolors look muddy, that they always have problems when they do not erase their pencil drawing marks.
Yeah, it might a little. It depends on the paper. It depends on the pencil. If you're using a water soluble pencil, it definitely will. I find on my usual paper, I use arches in my sketchbooks. It doesn't really affect it so much. I think I didn't clean my brush so well, so it looked a little muddy at first. You can even see it on my blotter here, like there is a little bit of color in that first wash. But I don't know. I kind of just go with things like that happen. As you can see, my drawings are fairly realistic and tight, so it helps me to have some messiness that kind of brings it to life, like, and kind of makes it a little more artistic, I guess you could say. All right, so I just took a little more color, and what I was talking about was this hint of the rind color that you see sort of, it's almost just like this really nice border. It's not much, it's just sort of right on the outline, and you can even have a nice like wash or fade if you wanted. So that's the first drawing. It's pretty simple. You can add more detail, like if I wanted to just add a little bit more, like I could even pull in some of that bright orange with a little yellow ochre. I'm just getting like a little bit of a darker color just to like add some shadow around these seeds. I mean, there's all sorts of level of detail you can get into, but we're going to leave it pretty much done. And now I'm going to move on. This time I'm going to be sketching to show you how this would work. And this actually might help the person who was concerned about the pencil lines and things getting muddy. If you're using a water soluble colored pencil to do your sketching, then it really will blend in. You won't have that issue, especially if it's a color that like is like a light version of what you're drawing. So I'm using Sicilian yellow, and I'm going to draw, this will be a lemon, and I'm just going to do like, okay, so if we do that same thing that we did before with a circle, it's going to be a little bit more of an ellipse, not a perfect circle, because we're going to be showing the side of the lemon. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because usually the citrus fruits have like a little bit of wonkiness to their shape. And then I'm going to be drawing the rest of it coming out, and you can play around with this. Just can't tell how on my, with my Wi-Fi on my screen, it looks like it's a little blurred, but so hopefully you can see that. And then the same thing's gonna happen. I'm doing really the same thing. I'm gonna have a little burst in here in the middle. And then I'm just gonna lightly pull out and make those segments. The other thing I haven't studied, and I'm not, I mean, my drawings are not scientific, is, you know, is there a consistent amount of segments within each citrus fruit? I'm really not sure. I'm gonna pull, yeah, somebody's asking me to pull it up. Can we see that? Okay, so now I have a sketch, but this color is gonna blend right into what when I paint. And what I'll do is I'm going to take a medium brush. I'm just using the sun yellow, which is this second yellow. And I'm keeping this very simple. Probably what I'm going to be using for this lemon is just the sun yellow and the burnt yellow ochre, which you can see I use a lot. That one's very well used. So pretty much just those two. And then the weight of the paper. That's it. So I'm just gonna kind of pull in the same way that I did the other. I'm using a smaller brush, but I'm kind of leaving a little bit of space. So I'm not coloring it in exactly. I mean, you know, like solid. I'm just kind of going back and forth, kind of like I did with the pen to make those little juice sacs or whatever they're called within the segments. Let's see. Okay. So hard to tell what you're seeing, what I'm. Okay. Did it freeze? Oh no, yeah, it looks like it's like freezing a little. Sorry about
It did look like that. So Sam, someone mentioned that they cannot see the lemon outline at all. And then another asked, how do you show the definition between segments?
Okay, so this let me try and talk through this because I am only using the paint. Can everyone see that better? Hopefully, then I'll just talk through that. So as you can see, you can really see my lines. And I'm not painting perfectly. I'm like getting a wash of color. And then for the segments, I'm just filling it in with little like lines of paint. So I'll just keep going, and then I'll bring it up every time because I don't know if it's my connection or what. The other thing is I've got these pencils. So this is going to be a combo drawing with the pencils and the paint. And I've got a bright yellow here. I've got this Sicilian yellow, and then I have a mustard. So actually I did some little swatches of these. These are the colors that I brought out. So I'm using these three colors. And the mustard is like a little browny, brown yellow. So what I can do is where the segments sort of end and start, or I can even add like some of those little lines in. I'm just going to add very little detail there. I'm not even going to go through all of them because what happens is there are actually these little white lines. It's the rind coming in to like sort of make those segments. So it's actually white. And but my drawing is not detailed enough. So I'm like kind of being very loose. So the white is, I'm not really, it's not going to be accurate, if that makes sense. So on an actual lemon, these lines that are coming in are the same color as this white outline. So that's why I'm not going to be like really doing the whole outline there. Just adding some details. I'll just keep pulling it up. Okay, now I'm going to be adding just a little bit of a darker wash. Like I said before, it's just the yellow and the burnt yellow ochre. Similar to how I did here, I'm adding more paint now. I'm working a little quickly because I want to keep moving, and we'll move on. So this darker color, I'm just adding similarly as I did here. But what happens is if I'm able to use the white of the paper, then we get a little bit like little highlights. I'll bring it up in a second. It's a different kind of style. And with this, you're not seeing the definition of the lines. You're not like me. It's not like a, I mean, the ink is a totally different kind of aesthetic. And that's why it's fun to show you a few different variations, and then you can decide what you like best. And I'm just pulling this color like here, just around the edge a little bit. Let me pull this up. So you can see some of my pencil sketch. You can see some of the pencil lines. If I wanted to be like a little bit more accurate, I could erase this pencil, but I personally like it, so I'm going to leave it. And you know, there's all sorts of levels. Like now I could take my ink and go around it, but I'm not going to. Kind of just, I'm going to leave it the way it is. You can also then add some shadows underneath if these are sitting on the table. If we have time at the end, I'll show you that as well. So now for the next one, I'll do a wedge. So how do we draw a wedge? Same one that I started with before. This is the Sicilian yellow. And I'm going to do a wedge.
Hey, Sam, while you're doing that, someone asked, what is a replacement of watercolor?
What is a replacement of watercolor? I'm not sure I understand.
And then someone also stated that they usually end up with a goof up stroke when they use the watercolor paint, and asked how you suggest they fix that goof up.
With the Inktense paints, if you have like a little blob or something and it goes down and dries really quickly and solid, and then you can't, because that does happen. You have to work quickly. This part, even, you know, right as I was working, it was like a little bit heavy. So I just blotted, I like went back and forth, and, you know, so the key with the Inktense paints is to work as quickly as you can. If something kind of comes up and you make a blob or something, or I've never had this issue with the water brushes, but the water brush makes a blob or somehow your hand skips or something. Just try and get in there right as quickly as possible with like a blot, a paper towel, some water, and try and blot it. Most likely it's still going to be there. And the way I deal with mistakes is I have a white, so the Inktense white paint is, I would say like 80% opaque. It's not really opaque, even if you really, really work it and have, it's a little milky and like not super opaque. That usually helps, you know, probably 75% of the time if I need some white or to correct or to add a highlight. But I always have in my bag some white wash. So, you know, you can just sort of work with it. I mean, similar, you know, if you're a watercolor artist, you know, you want to try and use the white of the paper as much as possible and maybe not mix your materials so much. But sorry, somebody asked if I could pull up the wedge. I just started. So, okay, let me do this as close to the screen as I can. So it's just, it's a semicircle. And then you kind of pull from this side, this corner, and you kind of just come down a little bit and kind of meet. So it's some wedges are super fat. Like you can do another one here. But we'll work on this one for now. It's a little thinner, or it depends on the perspective. And then we're going to do the same thing with the star, and it actually comes in a little bit, but just half of it. So it's just a wedge, like a wedge of the star and a wedge of the circle. So same thing, just pull it down and create your segments. Can everyone see that, hopefully? Okay. I'm going to use a little bit more pencil this time. And I'm going to go in and show you then how you can get some pencil down and then add water. It's the most fun thing about these Inktense paints is when you add water, how alive they get. I'm basically coloring all the yellow part in using the same yellow. And now I'm going to use one of the medium-sized brushes, make sure it's clean. I usually clean them, but that one had some paint in it. So, and now I'm just going to do this a little bit close to the screen. I don't know if you're able to see that, but when you add water, it just brightens and comes to life. It's so nice. So if you wanted, if you got used to making these shapes, you could be done. This is it. You know, you could be done just like that. But you can also add shadow and add more detail. So I will do that. This is the mustard. And we'll just come in on the side. And the great thing about using the Inktense paints with the pencils is that they have the pigment is the same. So you can they just work so well together. And then if I blend it. So this is an example of how just with these little shapes, this space here becomes negative space. I haven't even added really any lines here to fill it in, but we don't need it because you kind of know, just by that being the white of the paper, it you can fill it in. You kind of know what's happening. If I do this one, back with my pen.
While you're outlining, Sam, someone asked how much water they should add to the watercolor pencils.
That's like a real trial and error. I mean, you just have to decide, play around. I mean, that's a feel thing. I'm really comfortable with the water brushes, and I kind of understand like what happens when I squeeze, and there's always surprises. But if you squeeze too much or add too much, you can always blot it. The good thing about sort of going from pencil to paint, like the sort of making the Inktense pencil come to life and become like movable, like a little more movable with the water, is that you kind of already have that pigment down there. Whereas with the paints, you're just starting from scratch. So it's sort of like a I always say this whenever I'm teaching a workshop and people have new materials, half of the first step is getting to understand how the materials work. So you shouldn't even really be drawing anything. You should just be like putting color down, playing with it, moving it around, just seeing what it does and how it reacts. And sometimes it's like super easy and you just get it right away and then you can just run with it. Sometimes it's hard. Like I was playing with some Conte crayons and I haven't used them since college. And it's, there's a learning curve. So, all right, now I did another one here. I love both of this. I like the ink and not ink, but I'm so used to the ink, and that's how I create a lot of my drawings. So for me, it's kind of fun to have like a hard outline and be able to fill it in from there. Yeah. So, but it's all style and personal choice. So now I'm gonna fill this in. For this one, I'm kind of adding like it's a combination. So I have the black outline, but I'm not going to put all of the ink. And for the seed, because I'm going to put a seed in this one, I'll pull it up. You can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to take my thinner brush and add a little bit more. So this went down a little mustardy. This is probably truer. The color wise, this is a little bit of like a, I don't know, that maybe a lemon that's gone bad, but the seed is just a negative space. And let's see, how can I work out if the color isn't as bright as I like? I can just go back. The great thing about these Inktense paints is that if you add more pigment, they become more opaque. And what I do all the time in my own work is I just build layers. Sometimes it's layers of even as many as like 10 layers. I just keep building and building and building, and then it gets very, very opaque. So I'm going to work on this one a little bit like that. Trying to still leave a little bit of white space for the details in the segments. But as you can see, the paint is getting more opaque. And then I'm going to show you how the white works too. And another great thing about them, I love, is how the white that I was explaining how the white works. The more you add, the whiter and more opaque it gets. But like I said before, the paint dries quickly, so you can. I don't know if everyone can see that. You can build and build and build. It almost becomes like a gouache. It's much brighter in as far as I can tell anyway. It is much brighter in real life. I can't tell how you guys are seeing it, but it looks a little muddier on the monitor. So yeah. And then if you build and you let it dry and you keep adding white, eventually you can even get a highlight. And you can pull the highlight back in. It's nice to add highlights by just keeping the white of the paper, but you can also just build the paint and layer the paint and then get your highlights back in. All right, so now I'm going to move on from cut lemons and oranges, and I'm going to quickly just do a drawing and show how I would build the form and make a solid lemon and just show the line in the solid. So we'll move on. And I'll use my pencil for this one. So maybe I'll make a line for this. Lines are usually pretty solid and round. And then I'm just adding this little dimple or little thing at the end on one side. And I will use my big brush to fill in color. And for this one, I'm using Kiwi, which is this color here. Kiwi. And there's a really nice range of greens in the 24 palette. So I'll be going through and using a few of those. So what I'm going to do is get a light layer down. And I'm going to leave a little highlight at the top. So I'm just filling it in, but I'm leaving a little bit of the white paper. And this is a really good example of how quickly these Inktense paints dry. That first stroke that I made, you can see it. It sets. So there is a line there. It's totally no problem. Does everyone see that? So totally no problem because this is only my first layer and I'm going to be building. So just add a little bit more. And again, this is just touch, like you have to play with the paints and learn what they do and learn how much water to add. I haven't added any other colors so far. It's drying very quickly. It's great for showing and teaching because a lot of times with watercolor, people have to use like a hair dryer or, you know, it's complicated to deal with the drying time. So I'm just slowly adding a little bit more color. And they're a little bit, you know, I would add little blobs of water. They're a little bit tricky to blend. A little bit different than watercolor, but that's what I love about them. I've gotten really used to them, so, and I'm just filling in a little bit of that space, that white space, just making sure that the highlight is only, and the very white part of the highlight is the white of the paper. So now if I add Hooker's green, which is the little bit darker green, just being really careful how much I add. And the paper is wet, so you can kind of get some of those washes and being really careful with the wetness. Pull it up. And now I'm just going to hint at, clean my brush. I'm just taking a little bit of gray and adding just a little bit of a shadow. I'm totally making this up, so just to show that it's sitting on something. And the more closer it is to the bottom, you just add a little darker. This is the very first layers, so it's really light and it's moving a little bit, so I'm working quickly, pulling some of the dark out. The darker I add where the lime is sitting on the surface, the more realistic it will look. So I'll just go back to the lime. That a little darker. Now as it's drying, does anybody have any questions right now? Because I'm going to give it a second. And then I'm going to add a little bit of pencil.
So someone just asked any suggestions on a background to tie it all together, which you did kind of do some shadowing here, but any other suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, if you, let's say this is on a, I'm not sure how this works, but this would be like stem, because I'm not really looking at anything, so forgive me if I'm, but let's just say there is like a branch. You know, there could be some leaves on it. It's also nice, it's really nice if you do something, it's a choice. So it's kind of nice if you were to, you know, make a simple piece like this to maybe just not even paint the stem and the sketch that I'm working on now, and you just have that nice contrast. It's all like artistic license, right? I mean, I can't really say what you should do. This is just fun ways of drawing. Citrus fruits, they are the perfect subject matter to practice blending color. They're simple, they're fun, they're happy, they're healthy. Like, there's so many good things about drawing citrus fruits. So however you decide to do it, they could be little doodles on the side of your page. You could make big paintings. But really, if you ground it and put a shadow in, you're going to give it some sort of like setting. I mean, these are just floating in space. They're really just examples. So they're not really doing anything other than sitting on a white page. But if the more you practice, the more you would set it in its own context. I mean, maybe it's in a bowl with a spoon. That would be a real fun challenge. Grapefruit in a bowl, or maybe it's in your hand, or yeah, you get my point. There's a lot of different ways of finishing your piece. You can also do a pattern. I did one class with Derwent where we filled the page. So like, let's say this feels a little bit unfinished. If I made some citrus fruits and had them falling off the page, and it was just a whole pattern filling this page, that would be really fun. Kind of like the promo that I put together for this class. You can also, like, it's super fun if you have like the different colors of the citrus fruits, like green or more pink for grapefruit, or the blood orange color. Those are beautiful. So, okay, now I'm adding just like a little bit of shading with the colored pencils to solidify the shape. I hope that kind of helped. I don't know. Some questions are hard to give like one definitive answer to. I'm going to add a little bit of water. What I really like also about blending the two together is you can get these like little sketchy lines with the pencils. It's so nice. And if I wanted to, you can do sort of like a mixed media thing, but a little dark. Let's see. Yeah. What I want to do is show you. I've got my graphite pencil. Since I've got graphite here, you can add some dark with just a pencil. There would also be a shadow from the leaves. So it's pretty good to have some reference. I'm kind of making this up, and I don't want to wing it too much. And usually I do work from reference. This kind of situation, I don't need reference. I've done it so many times. But if I were going to do a lime sitting on a table with it still attached to the branch, I would probably want to have some reference. So, but that's just me. Some people draw in more of a caricature way. Some people, draw very super loose. So the white, I'm just building. We are getting close to the end, but the more I build, the more round and bright it gets. And I'm still leaving the white of the paper for that highlight. And the more detail you get, this is like some really beautiful thing about the rind of a citrus fruit, is there is like texture to it, little bumps. So you can hint at those just with a little tiny bit of dotted paint. Sometimes things come together when I'm doing my paintings right at the very end because of the layering. If anybody has any last questions, I'm just going to keep going with this. Once this dries, because those dots are a little bit too prominent, then I layer another wash of color to sort of pull them back a little bit. I can show you that, assuming that it dries fast enough.
As you wrap up, Sam, I have a general question I would ask toward the end of the class, but just a general question of if you're sketching on location, do you ever use a few of the Inktense pencils and a water brush, or just easier to carry your paint pan set?
I use my paints. I mean, it is nice to throw like 1 or 2 pencils in your bag. And if I did, it would be like a gray or a sepia, something that I could just work into any piece. So I don't know if you saw that, but I'm just showing how I did another layer of that bright lime, and it just gave it even more like roundness and fullness, and it kind of dumbed down like a little bit. Oh, it's weird. Sorry. Why is it doing that? That's so weird. Sorry, everyone. Good thing that happened at the very end of the class.
Do you know what color green you were using, Sam?
Okay.
Someone asked.
Still not going. There we go. Oh boy. It's so funny how like random thing. I did not touch the thing and it just decided to do that. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, what was the question?
What color green pencil?
For this, oh, which one was I using? I was
Yes.
using felt green. So it's a little darker. The one that would be comparable to the, so I'll just show you how this works. In the larger palette, this almost looks like the same pigment. It's probably not. Let's see, apple green, and this one's called kiwi. So they don't have the same name, but let's see if I. It's nice because when you really are working with the two, you can even pull in, you know, they really work together. And what I really enjoy, I mean, I like to use the pencils as much as possible. I did a sketch in my sketchbook. Let's see if I can show it really quickly. Where here we did this yesterday in a meetup, and I don't know if you can see, but it's all washes of the Inktense. But then I added some pencil. So for the blades of grass, it was just like some random scribbles in pencil. But I didn't add this is not a water soluble pencil, it's just a pencil. But that's an example of how like you can combine the sketchy sort of pencil lines with the paint. So yeah, I don't know. I would probably add a few more layers to this to really give it that roundness. We are pretty much out of time, but I'm here if anybody wants to ask me questions. Should we go back to my face? I don't know if we have time for that, but I'll just keep talking. Oh, there I am. Hi. Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions and want to reach out to me, you can by email, through my website, sdonbaker.com, or through Instagram, which is sdonbakerdesign. So, you know, just I'm easy to find, just find me, and I'm available, and I teach lots of different classes. So and I usually use Derwent, the paints. So any questions, you can feel free. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.